That's when he saw it. Keanu Reeves had always trusted Jordan. He was more than just a driver. He was a quiet, steady presence, someone who never overstepped, never asked for anything, and always knew how to blend into the background. For someone as recognizable as Keanu, that was invaluable. But lately, something felt off. It started with the late-night stops. At first, Keanu dismissed them. Traffic in LA was unpredictable. Maybe Jordan just needed a break, a moment to stretch his legs. But then there was the overheated engine, twice in 1 week. That was strange. The black SUV was always meticulously maintained. And there were the small details that didn't fit. A faint trace of something sweet in the car, a crumpled blanket in the back seat that hadn't been there before, an empty juice box under the front seat. Keanu noticed everything, and his gut told him something was wrong. One night, after a long shoot, Jordan pulled into a quiet side street off Mulholland Drive. Keanu, half asleep in the back, stirred at the sudden stop. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice groggy. Jordan hesitated. "Just for a second. Yeah, just need to check something under the hood." Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and like the video so you don't miss tomorrow's video. Keanu watched as Jordan stepped out, walked around the front of the car, and lifted the hood. The street was dark, the only light coming from a single flickering street lamp. Keanu leaned forward slightly, peering through the tinted windows. That's when he saw it. A small shadow moving in the back of the car. Keanu sat motionless in the back seat, his mind racing. The small shadow had barely moved, but it was enough. Someone was in the car with him, someone Jordan hadn't mentioned. The SUV's interior was quiet except for the low hum of the engine. Keanu's heartbeat picked up as he slowly leaned forward, careful not to make a sound. Through the narrow gap between the seats, he caught a glimpse of something small, curled up under a blanket. A child. Keanu's stomach tightened. Outside, Jordan slammed the hood shut and exhaled. He wiped his hands on his jeans before heading back toward the driver's seat. Keanu barely had time to lean back before the door opened. "All good," Jordan said, his voice too casual. Keanu studied him in the rearview mirror. There was something in Jordan's face, a flicker of tension, a guarded expression Keanu had never seen before. He had questions. A lot of them. But now wasn't the time. As the car pulled back onto the road, Keanu sat in silence, his mind replaying the moment over and over. The juice box. The crumpled blanket. The secret stops. Jordan was hiding a child in the car. Keanu didn't sleep that night. He couldn't shake the image of the small figure in the back of the car, hidden beneath a blanket, as if the world itself was something to be afraid of. By morning, he had made a decision. He waited until they were alone, just him and Jordan in the car, the city still waking up. The usual quiet between them felt heavier now, charged with something unspoken. Keanu finally broke the silence. "How long has she been with you?" Jordan stiffened, his knuckles tightening on the steering wheel. He didn't ask what Keanu meant. He didn't pretend not to understand. A beat passed before Jordan exhaled, his shoulders dropping. "A while." Keanu studied him. He wasn't just a man caught in a lie. He was a man carrying something heavy, something that had been weighing him down for too long. "You should have told me," Keanu said gently. Jordan let out a short, humorless chuckle. "Yeah? And then what?" He shook his head. "People like me don't get second chances, Keanu. If anyone found out, if the wrong people knew, she'd be taken from me. And I can't let that happen." Keanu's chest tightened. He had seen desperation before, but this was different. This wasn't just fear. This was a father's love, raw and unyielding. "Who is she?" Keanu asked. Jordan hesitated. Then, barely above a whisper, he said, "My daughter." The words hung between them, fragile yet unbreakable. And for the first time, Keanu saw Jordan not just as his driver, but as a man willing to risk everything for someone he loved. Jordan's daughter. Hidden in the car. Kept in the shadows, away from the world. "How old is she?" Keanu asked, his voice calm. Jordan gripped the wheel tighter. 6. He swallowed hard. "Her name is Maya." Keanu exhaled slowly, piecing everything together. The late-night stops. The overheated car. Jordan wasn't just pulling over for himself. He was making sure Maya had food, water, whatever she needed to get through another night. And the weight of that realization hit Keanu like a punch to the gut. "How long have you been doing this?" Keanu asked. Jordan hesitated. "Almost a year." Keanu felt something tighten in his chest. A year. A little girl, living in the back seat of a car. Sleeping curled up beneath a blanket while the world kept moving around her. "That's no way for a kid to live, Jordan." Jordan's jaw clenched. You think I don't know that? His voice was low, raw with frustration. You think I want this for her? He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. I tried everything. Shelters turned us away, too full, too many rules. The system? Not an option. If they find out I don't have a stable place, they'll take her. His voice broke slightly. She's all I have, Keanu. The pain in Jordan's voice was unmistakable. He wasn't hiding Maya because he wanted to. He was hiding her because he was terrified of losing her. Keanu had always believed that kindness was more than just a gesture, it was action. And right now, action was exactly what Jordan and Maya needed. He took a breath, choosing his next words carefully. You can't keep living like this. Jordan let out a dry laugh. You think I don't know that? He rubbed his face, exhaustion settling deep in his features. But what else am I supposed to do? Keanu didn't hesitate. Come stay with me. Jordan's hands froze on the wheel. His breath hitched. What? Keanu leaned forward slightly, his voice steady. I have space. More than I need. You and Maya can stay for as long as you need. No more hiding. No more sleeping in the car. Jordan shook his head, almost as if trying to shake off the idea itself. Keanu, man. I can't just. Yes, you can, Keanu interrupted, his voice firm but kind. You're not alone in this, Jordan. Let me help. Jordan gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. For months, he had been carrying the weight of survival on his own. And now, someone was offering to lift that weight. His throat tightened. Why? He whispered. Keanu's gaze softened. Because no kid should have to grow up thinking the world has forgotten about them. He paused. And because I know what it's like to lose people you love. Jordan didn't answer right away. He stared straight ahead, gripping the wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. Keanu let him sit with it. He knew what this meant. Accepting help wasn't easy, especially when you'd spent so long convincing yourself you didn't deserve it. Finally, Jordan exhaled, shaking his head. I don't even know what to say. Keanu gave a small smile. A simple, yes, works. Jordan let out a quiet, shaky laugh, rubbing his face. He looked at Keanu through the rearview mirror, his usual guarded expression replaced with something raw. Hope. Fear. Relief. Yeah. His voice was barely above a whisper. Okay. Keanu nodded. Good. Let's go get Maya. Jordan hesitated, his protective instincts kicking in. Are you sure, man? I don't want to. Jordan. Keanu's voice was steady. I wouldn't offer if I wasn't sure. That was it. The moment the weight started to lift, Jordan didn't have to carry this alone anymore. Keanu leaned back in his seat, tapping his fingers lightly against his knee. So, does Maya like pancakes? Jordan blinked, caught off guard. Yeah. Keanu grinned. Good. 'Cause I make a mean stack. The ride to Maya's hiding spot was quiet, but not tense. It was the silence of change, of a man trying to let himself believe that maybe things were finally turning around. Jordan pulled into a small, dimly lit parking lot behind an old laundromat. Keanu looked around, noting the worn-down surroundings, the kind of place people ignored, the kind of place you hid when you had nowhere else to go. Jordan turned off the engine but didn't move right away. His hands rested on the wheel, his jaw tight. She's scared of new people, he admitted. Doesn't trust easy. Keanu nodded. That's okay. I'll let her set the pace. Jordan took a breath, then opened the door. Keanu followed, standing back as Jordan walked to the back passenger door and gently knocked twice. Maya, sweetheart, he said softly. It's me. A few seconds passed. Then, the door slowly creaked open. Keanu saw her, small, curled up in the back seat, clutching a tattered stuffed rabbit. She had big brown eyes, wary but curious. Tangled dark hair fell over her face as she peeked up at Jordan. Hey, baby girl, Jordan murmured, crouching beside the open door. I want you to meet someone. He hesitated, then looked over his shoulder. This is Keanu. Keanu crouched too, keeping his distance, his movements slow and easy. Hey, Maya. His voice was warm, gentle. He smiled but didn't push. Your dad tells me you like pancakes. Maya didn't answer, just tightened her grip on the stuffed rabbit. But she didn't look away. Keanu chuckled softly. That's okay. I make them pretty good. You can be the judge. She studied him for a long moment, as if trying to decide if he was real. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, she asked, Do you have syrup? Jordan let out a choked laugh, covering his mouth. Keanu's grin widened. Oh, yeah, lots of it. Maya looked at her father, searching his face for reassurance. Jordan swallowed hard, then nodded. It's okay, baby. We're gonna be okay. The ride to Keanu's house was different. The air inside the car felt lighter, though neither Jordan nor Maya said much. Keanu didn't push. He knew trust wasn't built in a night. Maya sat quietly in the back, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Every now and then, she would glance at Keanu, studying him like a puzzle she wasn't sure how to solve. Keanu pretended not to notice, but he caught her peeking in the rearview mirror. Jordan kept glancing at his daughter, a quiet kind of relief settling over him. He still looked like a man ready to fight the world, but for the first time in a long time, he wasn't fighting alone. When they finally pulled up to Keanu's house, Jordan hesitated before stepping out. He looked at the home, warm porch lights glowing in the dark, a peaceful stillness surrounding it. "This is a lot, man," Jordan murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Keanu clapped a hand on his shoulder. "It's just a house, Jordan. The people in it make it a home." Jordan swallowed hard, nodding. He turned to the back seat. "Come on, baby girl." Maya hesitated but let her father take her hand. She climbed out slowly, looking up at the house with wide eyes. It was clear she wasn't used to places like this. Warm, safe, steady. Keanu smiled and stepped ahead, unlocking the door. "You guys hungry?" Maya nodded slowly. "Pancakes." Keanu grinned. "Pancakes." Jordan exhaled a laugh, shaking his head. "Man, you are gonna spoil her." Keanu chuckled as he held the door open. "Yeah, well, maybe it's about time someone did." Maya blinked up at him, then stepped inside. For the first time in over a year, she wasn't stepping into the back seat of a car. She was stepping into a home. And just like that, they took the first step towards something new. Maya sat at the kitchen counter, her small fingers tracing the rim of a juice glass as she watched Keanu move around the kitchen. She still hadn't spoken much, but her eyes followed every movement, especially when he pulled out flour, eggs, and a bottle of maple syrup. Keanu pretended not to notice, but he smiled to himself. "You ever helped make pancakes before?" Maya hesitated, then shook her head. Keanu cracked an egg into a bowl. "Want to try?" Maya looked at Jordan, who gave her an encouraging nod. Slowly, she slid off her stool and walked over to the counter. Keanu handed her a wooden spoon, letting her mix the batter. She stirred carefully, her brow furrowed in concentration. Jordan watched from the side, arms crossed, exhaustion in his face, but also something softer. Something that hadn't been there in a long time. Keanu leaned against the counter as Maya stirred. "You know, I wasn't always good at this," he said. Maya glanced up at him. "I messed up a lot at first," Keanu admitted. "Burned a bunch of pancakes. Made a huge mess." He grinned. "One time, I even dropped a whole bowl of batter on the floor. It went everywhere." Maya's lips twitched, just a little. Keanu lowered his voice like he was sharing a secret. "I still kinda make a mess." Maya's smile finally broke through. "Me too," she admitted softly. Keanu winked. "That's the fun part." Jordan swallowed hard, rubbing a hand over his face. He had spent so long surviving, fighting to keep his daughter safe, that he had almost forgotten what moments like this felt like. Small, simple, but real. When the pancakes were ready, Keanu stacked them high on a plate, drizzling them generously with syrup. He set a plate in front of Maya, then passed another to Jordan. "Eat up." Maya took a bite and her eyes widened. "It's good," she mumbled through a mouthful. Keanu grinned. "Told you." For the first time in what felt like forever, the three of them sat together, sharing a meal. For the first time, Maya wasn't eating alone in the back seat of a car. She was home. After dinner, Keanu led them upstairs to the guest room. It was simple but warm, clean sheets, soft pillows, a window that let in the cool night air. Maya stood in the doorway, gripping her stuffed rabbit. "This is for us?" Keanu nodded. "Yours for as long as you need it." Jordan put a hand on her shoulder, his voice thick with emotion. "Say thank you, baby." Maya looked up at Keanu, then whispered, "Thank you." Keanu smiled gently. "You're welcome." Jordan exhaled deeply as he sat on the edge of the bed, running a hand over his face. "Man, I don't even know how to." "You don't have to," Keanu interrupted. "Just get some rest." Jordan nodded slowly. He looked at Maya, then back at Keanu. "This means everything." Keanu patted his shoulder. "You've done the hard part, Jordan. Let someone else help for a while." Jordan's throat bobbed as he nodded again. As Keanu stepped out, he heard Maya's small voice behind him. "Keanu." He turned. She hesitated, then clutched her rabbit a little tighter. "Can we have pancakes again tomorrow?" Keanu chuckled softly. "As many as you want." Maya smiled, really smiled this time. Then she climbed into bed, curling up under the covers. The morning light streamed through the windows, casting warm golden hues over the house. Keanu sat at the kitchen table, sipping his coffee, listening to the quiet sounds of something he hadn't heard in a long time. Peace. Footsteps padded softly down the hall, and soon, a sleepy Maya appeared in the doorway, her stuffed rabbit still tucked under her arm. Her hair was a wild mess from sleep, and she rubbed her eyes before looking up at Keanu. "You said pancakes," she mumbled. Keanu chuckled, setting his mug down. "I did." He stood and stretched. "Come on, let's wake your dad up and get cooking." Maya hesitated, glancing back toward the guest room. "He's still sleeping," she whispered. Keanu studied her for a moment. "Is that rare?" Maya nodded. "He always wakes up first. Always checks things. Make sure we're safe." Keanu crouched down so they were at eye level. "You're safe now," he told her gently. Maya seemed to consider that for a moment. Then, as if finally allowing herself to believe it, she nodded. Keanu grinned. "Come on, Chef Maya. Let's get started." By the time Jordan woke up, rubbing sleep from his eyes, the smell of pancakes filled the kitchen. He blinked in confusion, momentarily forgetting where he was. The tension in his body, so familiar it had become second nature, was gone. He had actually slept. He had actually rested. Jordan followed the smell of food to the kitchen, where he found Keanu and Maya at the stove, flipping pancakes like it was a normal Saturday morning. For a moment, he just stood there, watching. His daughter, laughing. Not worried about where they'd sleep that night. Not scared someone would come looking for them. Just being a kid. Keanu glanced over, catching the expression on Jordan's face. "Morning, sleeping beauty." Jordan shook his head, a slow, disbelieving chuckle escaping his lips. "Man, I don't even know how to thank you." Keanu slid a plate onto the counter. "Eat first. Talk later." Maya giggled. Jordan chuckled again, rubbing a hand over his face before joining them. As they ate, Keanu leaned back in his chair, studying Jordan. "So, what's next?" Jordan exhaled. "I don't know, man. I mean, this is the first time I haven't had to think about just getting through the next day." He shook his head. "I want something better for her. I just don't know where to start." Keanu took a bite of his pancake, thinking. Then he said, "What if I told you I do?" Jordan looked at him warily. "What do you mean?" Keanu leaned forward. "You need a job, right?" Jordan nodded slowly. Keanu shrugged. "I happen to know a guy who owns a motorcycle shop. Good pay, flexible hours. And, if you're interested, I know someone else who could pull a few strings to get you guys a proper place." Jordan stared at him, like he wasn't sure if he was being serious. "You're just offering me all this?" Keanu met his gaze. "I'm offering you a chance, Jordan. What you do with it is up to you." Jordan swallowed hard. He looked at Maya, who was too busy drowning her pancakes in syrup to notice the conversation. Then he looked back at Keanu. "Yeah," he said finally. "Yeah, I want that." Keanu grinned. "Good. Because I already called the shop. They're expecting you Monday." Jordan let out a sharp laugh, shaking his head. "You really don't waste time, do you?" Keanu smirked. "Not when there's work to do." Jordan exhaled, running a hand over his face. "I don't know how I'll ever pay you back for this." Keanu's expression softened. "You already did." Jordan frowned. "What?" Keanu nodded toward Maya. Jordan turned, watching as his daughter licked syrup from her fingers, her face lighting up with joy over something as simple as breakfast. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of what came next. For the first time, she had a future. Jordan swallowed past the lump in his throat. Keanu stood, grabbing his empty plate. "I'll let you two finish up," he said, giving Jordan's shoulder a reassuring squeeze as he passed. And Jordan looked up. "You're not alone anymore." Jordan exhaled a shaky breath, nodding. "Yeah," he whispered. "I think I finally believe that." Maya beamed up at them, completely oblivious to the weight of the moment. "So, can we have pancakes again tomorrow?" Keanu laughed. "Kid, as long as you're here, you'll never run out of pancakes." And for the first time in over a year, Jordan knew, without a doubt, they were finally home.